attending this event and just giving recognition to friend Michael Cashman and other members of the European Parliament. Yeah, it's a kind of deja vu because I think 10 years ago I've been here before in exactly the same situation with only, I think in Zimbabwe, a few things that have changed. My president is much older. He's turning 89 in 2 days' time. But apart from that, I think a lot of the stuff on the ground, the issues remain the same. And it's really sad at times when you take a platform in an international forum like this and have to repeat again and again the same kind of issues without having any kind of progress report to give. I'm an aspiring candidate for the Makoni Central constituency in Zimbabwe. I've been in exile for the past 4 years. I left Zimbabwe in 2007. I left Zimbabwe on a hospital bed. I was hardly conscious, and I'll be going back home in a few weeks' time, fully conscious. And hoping that I'll remain conscious to be able to carry out my campaign. The constituency that I'm standing in is in the Manicaland province, and it's a safe constituency because we wrestled it from ZANU-PF in the last election. The incumbent then died in a fatal car accident in the early morning, about 2 years ago, Mr. John Nyamante, and the constituency has been vacant. He won this constituency from the current Justice Minister, Mr. Patrick Chinamasa, who ZANU-PF is going to have its own internal party process, and I might have to square it off with Patrick Chinamasa in the constituency. Why am I going home? People want to know because on the one hand, the situation is really terrible. Just what Jeffrey was talking about, the shrinking spaces, civil society is still under attack, and there seems to be really no hope. Where do I get my hope from? Why am I living my beautiful apartment in Brussels? My family, my last daughter is 8 years old. My oldest daughter is 18, and she started applying for university. It's an exciting moment for me and her as a mother. I just feel that 2013 for Zimbabweans is a year that something has to happen. And for me, I don't want to be missing when that thing happens. This struggle has gone on forever. And we've seen elsewhere in North Africa situations that we never really thought would change, but we saw how things started to change in places like Egypt. And so I'm really gearing to be part of the leadership in the pro-democracy movement that is going to energetically move forward, that we achieve the change that we set out to fight for in 1999. Ironically, my first arrest in Zimbabwe was during a constitutional referendum where I was one of the leaders who were campaigning in the No Vote campaign. And a strange irony is that I'm going back to campaign for a Yes Vote campaign. And some of my colleagues are going to be campaigning against me in the No Vote campaign. So we've reached a certain stage, I think, as a party, where we've had to mature beyond just being protest politicians, just being people who are there to say, no, we won't take that, but to start engaging ZANU-PF quite seriously and saying, okay, what's in it for us to go for a no vote, and what can we get out of that in terms of preparing for the coming elections? It's not an easy road to actually get ZANU-PF to agree to this current constitution, even in its in its form, it's not the best of documents, but there have been sleepless nights. I won't mention 45 million US dollars to get us to where we are right now. And for me, a no vote makes no sense because then we will need another 45 million US dollars to start a campaign again. So for me, it's really a transitional document that will allow us in the future, a future government, which I'm hoping I'll be part of, to be able to then put in place the institutional frameworks that will allow us to have a proper constitution and be able to have the kind of democratic dispensation that we all want. The constitution is important, yes, but in Zimbabwe, we've had a constitution, for instance, that bans torture and inhuman treatment. I was tortured even when that constitution was in place. So constitutions are important, yes, but then it's the political will and the political leadership in place. And when you look even at the debate within ZANU-PF, there's a lot now going on, a big discussion among themselves in terms of where they are positioning themselves. Their leader, Robert Mugabe, is 89 years old. Whichever way, I mean, they've been saying he's like Jesus Christ, he was anointed at 10 to be a leader. Whichever way, we know that in 10 years' time, he won't be part of the political future of Zimbabwe. So ZANU-PF, MDC, people are positioning themselves in the future, not a future of violence, not a future of rape, not a future of the kind of corruption that has been there. So I see I see some movements across the political divide. We don't know who in ZANU-PF is going to end up taking over. It seems to change on a daily basis depending on who you are talking to in terms of the different factions. But I just know that this election for me is not about Mugabe or ZANU-PF. And as I engage with Zimbabweans in the constituency and Zimbabweans in the diaspora, there's a young constituency of Zimbabweans who are really alert and dynamic. They are not feeding on Mugabe anymore. You know, you can't tell them hate Mugabe and get change. They have a certain level of articulation and sophistication, which really also calls for us as Zimbabweans in our campaigns as people to rise up to the occasion. So for me, this election really is about also how do we, at a global level, start a new conversation. We've been stuck in that conversation. When Jeffrey asked me to come, I said, wow, I am finished. Grace is a Jeffrey's event, Jeffrey, British, and you know, the whole thing, and then they're talking about land. It seems like a major political scandal. So I really had to ask myself, okay, am I going, am I not going? But I said, if I'm going to be in leadership, we are going to engage the British, we are going to engage Africans, and we are going to really, as Zimbabweans, say what we are about. And it's really disheartening because ZANU-PF's propaganda against the MDC, especially to Africa, has really taken root in some important places. It has really taken root. So when we think or when we start to plan strategically, friends of Zimbabwe and the MDC, how are we having a new conversation? Who are we dialoguing with on the African continent? President Zuma has been really, I think, breath of fresh air in the past months. He has really stood to his word in terms of what he hopes to see happening in Zimbabwe. We have President Kama also, who about 2 days ago was very, very clear that, look, I know there will be elections in Zimbabwe, but the infrastructure of violence is still in place, but the people who perpetrated violence are still there. There's not been justice. So even the whole realm of justice, I know that there are the white commercial farmers, there are people like myself. I went through, I can't start to explain what I went through during the years of 2006, 2007. There are those who have been killed. I have colleagues who have been killed, and for the first time, I have to go back home and come to terms with the fact that They are not there anymore. They are dead, and their families also want justice. So when we have these conversations, how do we locate the conversation so that we come out of this Zimbabwe, Britain kind of situation where we get stuck and where we get, it becomes a red herring, and ZANU-PF loves that. They then take it and run with it, and by the time you try to explain, no, this is human rights, this is universal, you find that the key constituency, which is Africa, would have been brainwashed in another way. So for the elections, we need SADC, we need Africa, we need Europe, we need the rest of the world to be engaged and to really say 2013 something has to happen. And I'm really hopeful that South Africa at least is under a new presidency, a president that I have a lot of confidence in, and I hope that discussions that go on in the parliament, that go on even in the UK parliament, are done in consultation with them. So, we move forward at the same wavelength. And for the Constitution, of course, just to end it off, the most wonderful thing for me is that for the first time, it guarantees a 50-50% for men and women in all decision-making positions. Yes. Yeah. So that's, and apart from that, of course, there's 60%, which is...
so you're downgrading women's voices today?
No, I'm standing, because what happens is there's the 60%, there are the 60 women who are going to be nominated from the parties, and I could have stayed in Brussels and said I'll be a beneficiary of that, but I said no, I'm going to stand in a real constituency and be elected in my own right and according to my own, how people view me. So I just want to say thank you to all friends, and I hope that this is the beginning of a good process of solidarity with the people of Zimbabwe, and hope that maybe as we continue to engage, we can change this conversation in a way that puts the MDC in a better footing in terms of global conversations and gives us a little bit of integrity on the African continent especially. Just to say thank you all, and yeah, thank you.